Dawn breaks over the rugged landscape as a small group of humans emerges from the mouth of a limestone cave. Their day has already begun, some scanning the horizon for game, others gathering kindling for the fire that never fully dies out. But what exactly filled the hours of our Paleolithic ancestors? The popular image of cavemen dragging women by the hair and clubbing mammoths hardly captures the complexity of their daily existence. So how did they spend their waking hours when survival was a full-time occupation? When we speak of cavemen, we're referring to humans who lived during the Paleolithic period, spanning from approximately 6 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago. This represents over 99 of human history, a time before agriculture, before cities, before written language. Yet this wasn't a static period. Massive innovations in technology, social organization, and artistic expression occurred throughout the Paleolithic. Our understanding of daily life during this era comes from multiple lines of evidence. Archaeological sites, preserved stone tools, hearths, food remains, and occasionally more perishable items like textiles or wooden implements, cave art. And portable artifacts provide glimpses into their symbolic world. Ethnographic studies of recent hunter-gatherer societies offer additional insights, though we must be cautious about direct comparisons across such vast time spans. The Paleolithic wasn't a monolithic experience, it varied dramatically by region, climate, and time period. Early Homo habilis living in Africa 2 million years ago had a profoundly different daily experience than Cro-Magnon painting the caves of France 20,000 years ago. Climate was perhaps the most significant factor, determining daily routines during the Ice Ages. When much of Northern Europe and Asia was covered in glaciers, survival demanded different strategies than in warmer periods or regions. Groups living near coasts or rivers developed fishing technologies, while those in forests or grasslands focused on different prey and plant resources. What unites all Paleolithic peoples is their lifestyle, as hunter-gatherers acquiring food through a combination of hunting animals and gathering wild plants. So, let's step back in time and examine what filled the hours, days, and seasons of our Paleolithic ancestors. The Paleolithic day began with the rising sun. Unlike our artificial lighting and rigid schedules, these early humans followed natural rhythms of light and dark, adjusting to seasonal variations. Morning typically began with rekindling. The previous night's fire. Archaeological evidence from sites like Terra Amata in France, dated to 380,000 years ago, shows carefully maintained hearths, critical for warmth, light, protection from predators, and cooking. Starting a fire from scratch was challenging. Most groups maintained embers or slow-burning materials overnight. Mornings were likely devoted to essential tasks, requiring daylight. The band would assess immediate needs. Was food running low? Did tools need repair? Were there signs of game? Nearby water collection was a daily necessity, typically from nearby streams or springs, carried in containers, made from animal blads, woven baskets, or eventually pottery rather than rigid schedules. Paleolithic life followed a pattern of immediate return activities and delayed return planning, preparing for future challenges. Evidence from sites like Gisher Benot Yaakov in Israel from nearly 800,000 years ago shows remarkable knowledge of seasonal plant cycles, suggesting sophisticated planning. The day's main activities varied by season and immediate needs, but food acquisition dominated. Adult males often focused on hunting, especially larger game, while women typically gathered plant foods and hunted smaller animals. However, this division wasn't rigid. Archaeological evidence suggests considerable flexibility in gender roles. Midday might include food, preparation, tool maintenance, or rest during intense heat. As the day progressed, hunters returned with game when successful, of course, and gatherers with plant foods as daylight waned. The community gathered around the fire. This evening time likely included storytelling, planning, and social bonding. Obtaining food was the primary occupation of Paleolithic peoples. Hunting large animals required considerable skill and coordination. Early humans likely began as opportunistic scavengers, but by 500,000 years ago, at sites like Box Grove in England, we see evidence of organized hunting. A horse shoulder blade from this site bears a clear spear wound demonstrating direct hunting rather than scavenging. Early Paleolithic hunters used simple hand axes and wooden spears. By 400,000 years ago, humans at Schöning in Germany were crafting sophisticated wooden spears, perfectly balanced for throwing. The introduction of spear throwers around 30,000 years ago dramatically increased range and power, while bow and arrow technology appeared in some regions by 20,000 years ago. Hunting wasn't always successful, making plant gathering the more reliable food source. Archaeological evidence shows Paleolithic people consumed a wide variety of plant foods, tubers, fruits, nuts, seeds, and leafy greens. Studies of dental calculus from Paleolithic teeth revealed traces of numerous plant species, including various medicinal plants. Plant gathering required extensive knowledge of growth cycles, habitats, and processing techniques. This knowledge was likely passed down through generations, creating sophisticated ecological understanding. The Paleolithic site at Coaster in Illinois, dated to approximately 9,000 years ago, shows evidence of fishing using nets and hooks, crafted from bone. Seasonal variation dictated rhythms of food acquisition. Spring might focus on gathering eggs and fresh greens, summer on berries and hunting young animals, autumn on nuts and preparing for winter, while winter often relied more heavily on stored foods and hunting. Food storage technologies were limited but crucial. Some groups dried meat to create early forms of jerky. Underground storage pits preserved certain foods in cooler temperatures. In colder regions, freezing provided natural preservation. The Paleolithic diet was remarkably diverse, much more so than early agricultural diets that followed analysis of bones from Paleolithic humans. Shows generally good nutrition with fewer deficiencies than their agricultural descendants. One crucial innovation was cooking. While the exact timing is debated, control of fire for cooking dates to at least 400,000 years ago, with some evidence suggesting much earlier origins. Cooking made many foods more digestible, releasing more calories and neutralizing natural toxins. In some plants, Paleolithic humans spent considerable time manufacturing and maintaining tools. Toolmaking wasn't occasional but constant. Stone tools dulled with use and required regular resharpening or replacement. A skilled knapper could produce a functional cutting edge in minutes, but more complex tools required hours of careful work. The evolution of stone tool technology reveals increasing sophistication. The earliest old tools were simple stone cobbles, with flakes removed to create a crude cutting edge. By 76 million years ago, Acheulean hand axes demonstrate careful facial flaking and symmetrical design. The Middle Paleolithic introduced Levallois technique, allowing more control over the size and shape of stone flakes. The Upper Paleolithic beginning, around 50,000 to 40,000 years ago, saw an explosion of specialized tools. Burns for engraving, scrapers for hide preparation, awls for puncturing, and projectile points for hunting. These weren't made by trial and error, but reflected sophisticated understanding of stone mechanics and intended functions. Tool materials extended beyond stone. Wood was undoubtedly the most common material, though it rarely preserves in archaeological sites. Remarkable exceptions include wooden spears and a yew-wood spear tipped from Clacton-on-Sea. These show careful shaping, with the wood's natural properties considered in the design. Bone, antler, and ivory became increasingly important in the Upper Paleolithic. These materials could be carved into fish hooks, needles, harpoons, and decorative items. Antler was particularly valued for its combination of strength and flexibility. Food processing tools included grinding stones for seeds, pounding tools for tough plant foods, and specialized cutting implements for butchery. Experiments show that stone tools could efficiently butcher even large animals like elephants. Though the process was time-consuming, containers were essential technology. Early humans likely used natural containers like gourds, shells, or animal bladders. By the Upper Paleolithic, evidence suggests the use of woven baskets and sewn hide bags. The earliest pottery appears by around 20,000 years ago. In China, clothing technology evolved. With climatic challenges during colder periods, hide preparation was essential. Stone scrapers removed fat and tissue from hides, while bone and needles allowed for sewing. Where did Paleolithic humans actually live? Despite the caveman stereotype, caves were just one housing option. Among many natural shelters like caves and rock overhangs were indeed used when available, especially in regions with harsh weather. Famous cave sites like Lascaux or Alamera preserve evidence of extensive occupation. However, caves suitable for habitation were relatively rare. and evidence suggests they were often used seasonally, rather than year-round. The archaeological record reveals various constructed shelters at Terrara Amata in France. Archaeologists found traces of oval huts approximately 8 to 15 mi long, supported by wooden posts at Measure in Ukraine, 15. 1,000 years ago, mammoth bones were arranged in circular patterns to create dwelling foundations, likely covered with hides. Inside these shelters, space was organized for different activities. Hearths typically form the central focus, with evidence of sleeping areas, tool-making spaces, and food processing zones arranged around them. Home maintenance required ongoing work, fire needed constant attention, shelters required repair after weather damage, and living areas needed periodic cleaning. At some sites, archaeologists have identified distinct dumping areas where refuse was deposited. Away from living spaces, child rearing was integrated into daily life. Unlike modern society's age segregation, Paleolithic children likely observed and participated in adult activities from an early age. Personal hygiene is harder to trace archaeologically, but ethnographic studies of hunter-gatherers suggest regular practices, including dental cleaning with fibrous plants and bathing in available water sources. Home life also included care for ill or injured individuals. Several Paleolithic skeletons show evidence of healed serious injuries or long-term disabilities, indicating community support for those unable to contribute fully to subsistence activities, contrary to popular portrayals of primitive existence. Paleolithic social life was rich and complex. The basic social unit was the band, typically 20 to 30 individuals, consisting of several related families. These bands weren't isolated. Archaeological evidence shows regular interaction between groups. Exotic materials found far from their sources indicate trade networks spanning hundreds of miles. Social bonds were maintained through various activities. Sharing food was fundamental, creating reciprocal obligations. Evidence from sites like Doni Vestige 29, 1,000 years ago, shows large hearths capable of cooking enough food for substantial gatherings. Suggesting communal feasting events, art played a crucial role in Paleolithic social life. The earliest definitively human art includes ochre processing at Blombos Cave in South Africa, almost 100,000 years ago. By the Upper Paleolithic, we see spectacular cave paintings, portable figurines, and musical instruments. Music is ephemeral, but surviving instruments offer tantalizing glimpses. Bone flutes dating to 43,000 years ago have been found in Germany, with careful reconstruction showing they produce notes in recognizable scales. Paired with drums made from stretched hides or hollowed logs, which rarely preserve these, suggests sophisticated musical traditions. Evidence for medicine and healing practices comes from plant residues with medicinal properties found in dental calculus. Some shamanic practices may be reflected in the Anthropic, a human-animal hybrid. Images in cave art, possibly depicting transformed states of consciousness. Conflict existed but wasn't constant. While some Paleolithic skeletons show violence-related injuries, they're relatively rare compared to later periods. Resource abundance relative to population likely reduced competition in many regions. The Paleolithic lifestyle represents the longest and most successful human adaptation, sustaining our species through dramatic climate changes and enabling global colonization. What can we learn from this enduring way of life? First, Paleolithic humans were remarkably skilled environmental managers rather than passive victims of their environment. They actively shaped landscapes through selective hunting, plant management, and even controlled burning. Archaeological evidence from Australia shows Aboriginal fire management dating back 65,000 years, creating mosaic landscapes that enhanced biodiversity. Second, Paleolithic lifeways demanded extraordinary knowledge, breadth. Each individual needed working understanding of hundreds of plant and animal species, geological resources, weather patterns, tool manufacturer, and social dynamics. This generalist knowledge contrasts sharply with our modern specialization. Third, their technologies were sophisticated adaptations to environmental challenges. While simple in appearance compared to modern equivalents, Paleolithic tools represented elegant solutions developed through generations of refinement. The principles behind many modern tools were established during this period. Perhaps most significantly, the Paleolithic period saw the emergence of symbolic expression, abstract thinking, and cultural complexity that defines humanity. The Paleolithic wasn't a primitive prelude to civilization, but a highly successful and sustainable adaptation for over 99 of human history. This lifestyle maintained population balance with resources and supported rich cultural traditions. Achievements worth considering as we face our own environmental challenges. So, what did cavemen do all day? They engaged in a complex balance of immediate needs and long-term planning. They manufactured and maintained essential technologies. They acquired, processed, and shared food. They created and repaired shelters. They taught their children practical and cultural knowledge. They developed art, music, and symbolic systems. They maintained social bonds within and between groups. They adapted to environmental challenges through innovation and mobility. When we look at the archaeological record, with fresh eyes we see not primitive ancestors but innovative humans facing environmental challenges with creativity and resilience. Their solutions, from sophisticated hunting technologies to symbolic art, laid the foundations for all subsequent human achievements. The next time you imagine a caveman, consider not a fur-clad brute, but a skilled technologist, a knowledgeable botanist, an innovative artist, and a cooperative community member, all rolled into one remarkably adaptable human.